We are now just 3 days away from night number one, game number one of the 2024 NBA Finals inside TD Garden in Boston between the Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. Thursday is game number one of the NBA Finals. And DRS, here we are, where the rest of this week, plenty of previews and breakdowns in every different angle you need to know that will decide the NBA champion here in 2024. The Mavericks into the NBA Championship Series for the first time since 2011 when Dirk Nowitzki led Dallas to their only Larry O'Brien trophy. Just the third time for Dallas as a franchise into the NBA Finals. Boston on the other side, plenty more than that. In fact, the Celtics have 17 NBA championships to their name, but looking for their first since 2008 in the long and illustrious franchise history in Beantown. Second NBA Finals appearance for the Celtics in the last 3 years. And Boston remains a heavy favorite, minus 220 for the C's to win the NBA championship here in 2023-24 outright. That number has not moved. A couple of the other markets that will determine what this NBA Finals looks like this season have changed ever so slightly, but we start there. Boston still remains greater than a $2 odds-on favorite to win the Larry O.B. this season.
Yeah, and if we're taking a look as a handicapper, this is actually a pretty tough series for me so far before these games start up on Thursday night, because you're saying to yourself, from a Boston Celtics perspective, Ben, we knew all season long they were the best team in the NBA, record-wise, and also no doubt in getting that number one overall seed in the East and probably the number one overall seed in the NBA, which they do have. But it would have been nice to sort of get a measured test early on in the playoffs, like a healthy Philadelphia 76ers, a healthy New York Knicks team, heck, even a healthy team that they even faced off outside of the Milwaukee Bucks, but we didn't get that here. And then we saw the Dallas Mavericks throughout the season. We knew they had talent, but we didn't know that their upper echelon talent could play this well and play this well together and be healthy, and now they're finding themselves in the finals and running the gauntlet of a much, much tougher Western Conference here. So as I say, as a handicapper, which two teams am I going to get on the first two nights of the NBA Finals? Is it going to be the Dallas team that has been phenomenal all the way through? It's going to be a Celtics team. It's like, oh my gosh, we actually got to play a formidable opponent here. We haven't seen this just as of yet. But as a fan, I love this to talk about it because you do have the upper echelon talent and superstars. You don't have one of those, hey, Cinderella season, let's see if it continues, like quite frankly, the Miami Heat were last year. So I'm right now just trying to average in what am I getting out of the Boston Celtics? Because as you pointed out, they're a heavy series favorite and should be, but I would have loved that they would have beat down the Sixers or beat down the Knicks or beat down the Bucks when they were fully healthy on their way to the NBA Finals.
It's a really good point, DRS, and we'll talk about how these odds are starting to shift ever so slightly to make it seem like we are going to get more of a competitive set than maybe we imagined or anticipated at first. But I had this conversation with a couple of friends on Saturday afternoon over some brews, lively conversation, one of my good friends from outside of Boston. And we all kind of came to the same assessment, which is fun to have those conversations with my friends who don't necessarily work in sports, and then those conversations with you and plenty of talented guests here on the SportsGrid network. And the overall belief being that Dallas has two of the best players in this series. In terms of superstars, Luka Doncic is the best player in the NBA Finals. You could probably make an argument for Jason Tatum versus Kyrie Irving. I'd give it to Tatum. But when you go 2 versus 2, Dallas is superior. But where Boston has such a stark advantage is the depth throughout their starting five, throughout their rotation, and the return of Kristaps Porzingis, who we have not seen since the opening round series for Boston against Miami. And in that way, the depth you would think in an NBA Finals probably favors the Celtics. The idea being, DRS, if the Mavericks are victorious, it means that Luka and Kyrie outplayed Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and the equalizer was the depth. If Boston is victorious, the advantage wasn't so drastic for Luka and Kyrie over the Jays, and the depth overall for the Celtics won the day.
You're right about that, because you take a look at the Dallas Mavericks and you look at their roster and say, I wonder who is going to step up. And sometimes like, wow, that was a really good game out of PJ Washington. We don't have those surprises for the Boston Celtics where you say Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to have a quality night. But hey, if I would have told you Derek White splashed 5 triples, like, yeah, that's what he does. Or if you said, Kristaps Porzingis had 19 points and 4 blocks and 11 rebounds coming back healthy. Yeah, that's what he's supposed to do here. Or if you go to the bench, you'd be like, man, I never figured Pritchard would go 6 of 11 for the game, including 3 3-point shots. No, that's what he does. And that's what we anticipate and why we think the Boston Celtics are better. Because you pointed out here, superstar versus superstar at the front end. That is going to be an unbelievable battle. But I think we're just comfortable saying, all right, if both of those superstar tandems have average nights, who's going to step up? And we think that there's much more talent on the Boston Celtics, rightfully so, that could step up. And that's just where you leave it. Right. And again, so many people will look at the series and say, boy, that's a heavy price on the Celtics. And it is. But again, that price point is there for a reason. It just wasn't, as I like to say, brought out of a hat like, okay, Celtics minus 220, have at it betting public at this point. The Celtics are a better team. The Celtics are the home team here, and the Celtics are going to be healthy in game number 1 with their intact starting 5. So we'll see what the Mavericks have for them.
And listen, that is a large number at minus 220 in favor of Boston. But the Celtics have been a 4-digit odds-on minus money favorite in each of their first 3 series. That included the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana. The Mavs a slight favorite in their opening round against the Clippers, slight underdogs in both of their last 2 series against OKC and Minnesota. And we had similar conversations. Which dynamic duo was better for the WCF? Was it Ant and Cat for Minnesota or Luka and Kyrie for Dallas? That was the story of the series. That pair for Dallas strongly outplaying the other two on the other side. Luka Doncic, 28-plus points in all 5 games of the Western Conference Finals. But here's where things have changed. Boston has been the odds-on favorite for the last 3 rounds, virtually, of this NBA postseason. Boston was the favorite entering the year and became the solo favorite for a good majority of the NBA season. But entering the weekend, DRS, no action, of course, has happened, but entering the weekend, shortest correct score was in 6 games. Shortest total games was also in 6 for how long the duration of the NBA Championship Series played out. And if we go back to the series spread, Boston laying a game and a half. For Boston to cover that number, they would have to win this series in 6 games or less. 4-2 or shorter than that is now a plus money price. Dallas getting a game and a half, meaning this series goes 7 or the Mavericks win it outright, is the expected VIG right there at minus 134. That has changed ever so slightly, where 7 games, the full duration of the NBA Finals, is the slightly shorter and thus expected price at plus 190. Listen, it's a 10-cent gap. It's a 40-cent gap from 5, 6, or 7. It is not stark by any means, but we are starting to see, maybe, just maybe, DRS, this series expected to be a little bit tighter than previously thought.
I think, I don't want to say like betting public, maybe just the public, probably rooting more for the Dallas Mavericks as a fun story as opposed to the Lakers at this point, or excuse me, as opposed to the Celtics at this point, because you're lining it up, and a lot of people don't like the Celtics. I'm in Philadelphia. Certainly we don't like Boston. There's no real animosity towards Dallas. Now, in other sports, that's completely different, but certainly not in the NBA because of a Western Conference opponent. But if you are looking at that series and saying, like, it has to go 6 or 7 games, these are 2 quality opponents. Well, you take a look at the Celtics and like, yeah, well, every game, no, they didn't even get to a game number 6 yet here in the NBA playoffs. We'll see if they can actually happen in the finals. And that's no shot at the Dallas Mavericks, where they should be on a competitive level. If we're taking a look at the layoff time between the Western and Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, I think that does benefit Dallas because they need to rest their superstars and get as much energy as they can, as opposed to, you take a look at that path towards victory for the Celtics, which was quick sweeps, or gentlemen sweeps, I should say, throughout those rounds before they actually swept the Indiana Pacers. So for me, I'm actually sort of thinking on the shorter side of the series, but this comes to my agreement where I said before this series starts, sometimes I just got to watch these 2 teams play because I don't know what the Celtics are, even though they have a great record here. I know what the Mavericks are, which throws me for a little bit of a loop, which is going to be so much fun breaking this down until we get to Thursday's action.
We will look at game number 1 in the odds for it and what it means for the entirety of this series from a matchup perspective next. Game number 1 of the 2024 NBA Finals on Thursday. The countdown continues here on this Monday on the early line on SportsGrid. The Celtics DRS, a 6-point home favorite. The over-under currently stands at 214 and a hook. There has not been much movement in the odds for the opening night of the NBA Finals. That says 5.5, or is my eyesight terrible here?
6.5.
6.5. Okay, that's back down to 6 as of this morning, live on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and we are a FanDuel-sponsored show. Over-under 214 and a hook. Donnie, as you look at the odds, Boston has been booked as a favorite in all 14 of their NBA playoff games so far, of at least a 7.5-point margin. This 6-point spread, the shortest in favor of the C's. Boston, in fact, in their home games, has only been booked as a single-digit favorite once. That was game number 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Celtics won by double digits, covering that number. Meanwhile, for Dallas, 6-1 are the Mavericks straight up as an underdog throughout this playoff run, so Dallas does not balk at the idea of being an underdog. How do you feel about what the numbers are telling you entering game number 1 on Thursday evening?
I mean, they're really strong at this point, and you're taking a look here. This isn't a surprise, right? You say to yourself, right now, live at the FanDuel Sportsbook, it's a 6-point favorite here for the Boston Celtics. So go take a look at where these early indicators are coming from, and the money and the ticket spreads are coming from at FanDuel. How about this? Percentage of bets on the spread, which just means how many tickets are coming in, don't matter the dollar amounts. 77% of those tickets coming in on the Dallas Mavericks. And you can understand that from a public perspective. I'm getting a really good basketball team that I think can win game number 1, and you're going to give me 6 points. Yeah, that works out. Now, granted, last time I would have told you that with that line and say, you know what? The Dallas Mavericks getting the 4.5 points against the Timberwolves, and now it's up to 5.5, and the public's loving the Mavericks. Let's go the opposite direction. Didn't work out all that well here. So we'll see if that works out in game number 1.
Right.
But that's a heavy number. And also the money coming in, 71% here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, backing the Dallas Mavericks as well, just setting it up for game number 1. Now, the interesting part about this, too, is, again, getting back into what are the Celtics actually? The team that you trusted all throughout the regular season and you still trust in the playoffs, but really haven't played an opponent that's been up to, I don't know, at least being healthy enough to challenge you. We're expecting that out of the Dallas Mavericks. But also at the same time, what always creeps into our minds here? It's not as if both of these teams got done playing Saturday night and played well and are going to match up Tuesday. Everybody's in rhythm and away we go. This is a really long layoff to get ready for the biggest moments of some of these guys' careers, and playing into that in game number 1, that's tough, man. It really is, Ben.
So, Donnie, that was going to be my next question. Rest versus rust, the age-old debate by the time you get to significant games in the postseason. But it might just be rust versus rust or rest versus rest, because Boston's last game of NBA playoff action exactly a week ago today, on Memorial Day Monday, knocking off the Pacers in Indianapolis in a tight one, winning the Eastern Conference Finals in games that were closer than expected, but still only for a series sweep over Indiana. Dallas's last game was on Thursday. By the time we reach game number 1 of the NBA Finals, that's a full week off for the Mavs. Probably good for Luka's ailing knee, and that's 10 days off, about a week and a half for Boston. Does the rest advantage or disadvantage come into play for either of the two clubs?
And that's what's tough, and this is what's great, where we can line it up until Thursday to say it. But if I have an opinion right now that I'm probably going to stick to here, is I do think the rest advantage really favors the Dallas Mavericks, because we were talking about not Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, hey, banged up throughout the playoffs, be nice to get some rest. We were hearing words from the Dallas Mavericks behind the scenes like, hey, man, Luka is really battling this knee injury, and if it was the regular season, he would miss multiple games, but in the playoffs, you can't do that. So if you give him over a week off, and knowing, it's not as if like Luka's the starting point guard on the Dallas Mavericks, like, hey, look, just get everybody involved here, get your 10 assists, make sure everybody gets their clean looks out here. No, you need him to be the best player on the court every single night, have the ball in his hands repeatedly, and playing over 40 minutes a night. I think the rest advantage right now lines up with the Dallas Mavericks. Why? Because they need their two superstars with really charged up batteries heading into the series, because if you tell us right now, average series from Tatum Average series from Brown. You know what? Celtics probably still in it. We'll see what happens. Average series from Luka and Kyrie? No. They're not even making it to game 6 here, Ben.
For sure. Absolutely so. The burden is going to be on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Luka's points prop for game number 130 and a hook. Kyrie Irving in his return to Boston, 24 and a half. There are those narratives, of course, to monitor. Kyrie back inside TD Garden. I don't think it's going to be a flattering homecoming by any means. And Kristaps Porzingis against his former team in the Dallas Mavericks. Boston has been the expected NBA championship favorite all year long. Co-favorite with the Bucks to win the NBA title before the year got underway. Became a short favorite pretty much by the time we got to February into the All-Star break. I bet Boston at a plus 220 number in late March, seeing how the path was starting to play out in the Eastern Conference. And thus, here we are. Boston a minus 220 favorite now to win the NBA title. On the other side, though, Donnie, the Mavericks had the 7th best price to win the Western Conference before the season got started. That number and their NBA championship number got longer by the time we got to the All-Star break. The Mavs won 6 straight, entering the All-Star break in the middle of February, and then went 18-9 on the other side, 24-9 in their final 33 NBA regular season games as that duo of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving started to click. You said this early on. You know what Dallas is based on what you have seen here in the postseason. You still question slightly what you have seen out of the Celtics. Are you really questioning what Boston is as a team, or is it just the idea they haven't been tested yet in the NBA postseason?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to trust them as a team because at every turn this year, they proved you they're a great basketball team. And I always like to get back to this premise of, yes, they haven't faced top-level talent in the playoffs, Ben, but it's not as if they were going 6 and 7 games struggling to put these teams away. They were ending these teams quite early in the series. So I'm not worried about that, but you see the big price tags here in the finals, particularly in game number 1. It's just hard to say, yeah, I fully trust this team, but I haven't seen it yet, even though I know they're a good basketball team. But again, we'll find out Thursday night right away who that good basketball team is.